Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to another edition of ZFF Daily. I'm your host, Ben Lyons, and let's get you up to speed on everything that's been happening here at the Zurich Film Festival. Yesterday, once again, the green carpet was filled with stars, and at the center of all the attention was none other than Hugh Jackman, who took lots of time to meet his fans. I spoke with him about his new film, Prisoners, our conversation later on ZFF Daily.
For me, when I make films, I'm away from my fans. You know, I'm used to the theatre where you're with them every night, so it's a chance to actually thank them. It's a chance to meet up with them, celebrate, and music's pumping it. Everyone's happy to be here. We're celebrating film at the Zurich Film Festival. Life is good.
More with Hugh Jackman later in the show, but right now I'm honored to be joined by Ryan Coogler, the director of Fruitvale Station. Congrats, man, on being out here at Zurich. You enjoying your time in Switzerland?
I'm having a blast, man. I really am.
I've met a lot of directors over the years. I've never crossed paths with somebody who just genuinely loves film as much as you do. I mean, and loves making movies, and you came into our studio and we're asking what kind of cameras we have here. Where did this love of film start for you?
It started fairly recently, man. I'm 27 now. I really got into it when I was like 17. You know, so it's been about 10 years. Mm-hmm. I used to play football. I got a football scholarship to a school in the Bay Area, and I was majoring in chemistry at the time. I liked science, so I was trying to become a doctor. You know, if football didn't work out, and they made me take a creative writing class, and in that class I wrote an assignment, and my professor, you know, recommended that I become a writer. You know, after reading it, and specifically screenplays. So that's kind of how I got into it, you know. Well,
your film Fruitvale Station is one of my favorite films in years, and it feels like a lifetime of film love for you just exploding onto the screen. For our audience that isn't familiar with the project, here's a little bit more information about Fruitvale Station. Fruitvale Station is a film written and directed by Ryan Coogler that stars Michael B. Jordan, Oscar winner Octavia Spencer, and Melanie Diaz. It's based on the true story of Oscar Grant, a 22-year-old from Haywood, California, who was tragically shot and killed by a police officer. The film premiered at this year's Sundance Film Festival and has received numerous awards around the world. Powerful and incredibly moving, it's one of the most talked about movies at this year's Zurich Film Festival. Talk to me about how you first came across Oscar's story.
I first came across it like everybody in the Bay Area did. Like, first I heard about it from somebody who was riding BART that night. It was New Year's Eve, and everybody was kind of on public transportation that night. And then I saw the footage, unfortunately, on the internet and on the news. You know, and that was how I first became aware of how it went down, and everybody had their own different reactions to it. You know, it was something that really shook the whole Bay Area, and people, you know, immediately started protesting and rioting, and people kind of took sides politically, you know, about how they felt about Oscar and how they felt about the situation. And I was really interested in the human side of it, because I couldn't help but see myself, you know, in him, and I thought about who would be most affected if I didn't make it home. So I thought about maybe making a film from that perspective, the perspective of his most close relationships, you know. It's
got to be difficult, I would imagine, to balance having such success with the movie now that it's premiered at Sundance and it's taking you all over the world, and yet you have to honor Oscar's life, and you have a relationship with his family, I know.
Absolutely.
So how have you balanced that? Because I imagine it's quite hard.
No, it is, and it's really an interesting thing to think about, because I wish I wasn't here. You know what I mean? I wish this dude was still alive, living his life, that he hadn't been shot and killed that night. And then I was here for making a different type of movie. You know, I think the biggest thing that I try to think about is the fact that, you know, with this film, people are being made aware of this situation, being made aware of what happened with Oscar, and more than anything, his story has given a window into many stories that are still happening today in the United States. And if you think about young people losing their lives in unnecessary fashions, you know, that's something that's kind of universal. That's happening all over. It's just unfortunate that with African American males right now, it's something that's so prevalent. You know, when you think about urban violence and and these young kids dying, whether it's at the hands of other African Americans or whether it's at the hands of police or people from other ethnicities. You know, it's something that's kind of continuing to go on.
It's a lot to take on for a first-time filmmaker. I mean, you made shorts before taking on Fruitvale Station, but for your first feature, there's a lot going on with this, obviously. Have you kind of taken a step back and put it all in perspective and realized that, wow, you know, you're not just telling one man's story. You're telling a story about a lot of different things going on in America and around the world right now.
I mean, I think it's interesting, man. Like going back to, it's kind of full circle. Going back to chemistry. One of the things that most interested me about chemistry was that, you know, from studying atoms, you know what I mean, very, very small, the smallest known structures, you know, in our reality, you can find out more about everything, you know. So I find film is kind of that way, by focusing in on Oscar's story and specifically kind of tuning everything else out, kind of tuning the world out, and just looking at this one guy's life, looking at his dynamics. In many ways, you can get to the root of a lot of things that's happening with everybody. You know, it's been interesting. People talk about how universal the story is. You know, but for me, it was a very specific story. You know what I mean? But through the specifics, you know, of this one person's life, you can kind of get to all those other things. But I mean, I think something that helped me from getting overwhelmed was not thinking about all of that and just thinking about, you know,
well, then you premiere the movie at Sundance, and I know you thought, okay, that's the last I'm going to have to talk about Fruitvale. That's the last time people are going to see the movie. And then now this whole other adventure has happened for you and for the people involved with the film. So what's that been like?
It's been a learning process. I mean, I've been fortunate that I wake up every day and I learn something new, you know, and it's been that way, you know, since premiering the film at Sundance. The whole process of distribution and the process of engaging with the press was something I had never learned about. You know, I went to film school and we learned how to make movies, but we didn't really learn how to do what comes next.
All the business that comes with getting, you know, your movie out there. And
exactly, and I was very ignorant, you know, in terms of the ways of how those things worked. So I've been fortunate to.
You're a fast learner because you've handled it well.
I've just been fortunate to work with a company that's very passionate about movies. You know, in the Weinstein company.
What was your first meeting like with Harvey?
Oh, it was really cool, man. I'll never forget it. We met in a house that was being rented by the WME sales agents. You know, that were selling the film. And I met him. I met David Glasser, COO. I'd already met Dan Guando, who's
intimidating room for a young guy to walk into, huh?
I mean, it was cool, man. We talked movies. And Harvey, he's a real high film IQ. You know, it's like his brain is just made up of movies that he's seen and things that he liked. And he kind of pinpointed some of the influences that influenced me in the film. And some of them I hadn't really talked about that much. You know, he kind of nailed those and talked about, you know, different scenes that he liked. And he kind of thinks like an editor. You know what I mean? He has a reputation for thinking like that. And so he was kind of picking out different cuts in the film that he liked. And he had some interesting insight about how to get it out into the world. You know?
You get a lead performance from one of the great young actors working today, Michael B. Jordan, that people who see the movie will never forget. I feel like in honor of Michael, I should wear my shirt.
Wear your shirt on the white button.
It's like such an MBJ thing to do.
I make fun of him for that all the time, man. You know, it's like a Chicago thing, man. I realized,
that's Mike all the way up here all the time. Yeah. But talk to me about how you found Michael and you've been following his work for a while, and people in the industry I feel like have been aware of him. But this is the first time that, you know, his work is really going to reach a big audience now, I think.
I mean, Mike is I think he's one of the best actors on the planet. You know what I mean? Young, old, any of those things, and he's really, really experienced. You know, he's a young guy, you know, in his mid-20s, but he's been acting since he was a baby. You know, so you talk about somebody who's really charismatic, who's an aggressive learner, has a really great work ethic and a great team mentality. You know, it was just amazing to be able to get him on this film, and for us to be able to this was his first lead role, you know, that he's ever had. So for us to be able to showcase him was a great honor.
It's definitely the type of performance that 20 years from now, when he's an A-list star, people maybe will go back and watch and say, that's how we discovered Michael B. Jordan. But somebody who's obviously fully established in his career is Hugh Jackman, who's out here. You crashed the press conference. You just wanted to hang out and watch the press conference.
I was really interested, and it was funny because I didn't even know you were when I was leading. It was really cool. But I was really interested in seeing them talk about that film. I'm a big fan of Prisoners. I just saw it before I came to Zurich.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Denis. You know, I really love the Incendies. Huge fan of Melissa Leo. You know, so it was great. I mean, it was a press conference that I would have loved to attend, even if I wasn't a a filmmaker.
Well, Hugh Jackman was out here for his film Prisoners, as well as receiving an award at this year's Zurich Film Festival.
One of the biggest stars coming to Zurich this year is Hugh Jackman, who will receive the festival's Gold Icon Award. Jackman is known for his tough roles in action films like Wolverine and the X-Men. But this time, he's surprising us by playing a father in the movie Prisoners.
For me, when I make films, I'm away from my fans. You know, I'm used to the theatre where you're with them every night. So it's a chance to actually thank them. It's a chance to meet up with them, celebrate, and music's pumping and everyone's happy to be here. We're celebrating film and the Zurich Film Festival. Life is good.
All right. I've heard you've been cycling and having a beer this afternoon. What was better?
You can't separate the two. No, I always try when I can to get out and just get the fresh air and have a bike ride around. Bike ride around means no one can really catch up with me if it gets a little crazy, and having a beer on the lake there was just heaven. But this is a very cool, chilled place. People were noticing me and they were like, let him have a beer, it was nice.
Jackman's character in Prisoners, Keller Dover, faces every parent's worst nightmare. His 6-year-old daughter Anna goes missing, together with her young friend Joy. As minutes turn to hours, panic sets in. The only clue is a dilapidated RV that had earlier been parked on their street. Jake Gyllenhaal plays the detective heading the investigation. As the police pursue multiple leads, the pressure mounts. And knowing his child's life is at stake, Dover takes matters into his own hands. But just how far will a desperate father go to save his family?
Talk to me about how it's changed maybe your relationship with your kids, and if you look at them a little differently now from doing this?
I think for all parents, as I read it, I had a pit in my stomach. When you first read it, you were like, oh, this is too much. But ultimately, it's something cathartic. And, you know, as a parent, you have to, at some point, come to peace with the fact that you can't control everything. You can't protect in every situation, and you have to let kids kind of discover things and trip and do all that on their own. It's a very hard and fine line to cross. I was brought up by my father from when I was 8 with 5 siblings, and he worked, so I was brought up with a lot of independence, a lot of time to myself, and I remember that weirdly in a good way.
Do you feel more pressure on a movie of this size as opposed to a huge blockbuster?
I'm going to tell you, the actual reality, apart from the odd scene where you'll have hundreds of extras and cars blowing up, movies feel remarkably similar.
You touched on it briefly at the press conference, but you have a strange connection to Switzerland. Walk me through that.
And I only remembered it as we landed this morning that my parents met in Interlaken, which is like a resort town here in Switzerland. So if not for Switzerland, I would not be here. You would be with Brad Pitt right now. I'm sorry for you, my friend.
But it's a lot of weight that you put on the shoulder of Switzerland.
It's true, yeah.
I loved the story. I thought it was an ambitious and unconventional thriller. I had not done a movie like that. I don't get asked very often to do movies like that. Thank you, Kira. And all of those reasons. But the truth is, as much as I wanted to do it, I did not say yes to the film until Denis Villeneuve came on board. According to my wife, I'm a little too serious. She thinks I'm a little, and my father's a little like that. I am generally always on time. I love chocolate. What was the other quality you mentioned? Yeah. And I am too rich, that's true.
Whether on screen or on Broadway, Jackman shines. We're eager to see what role he slips into next.
So now you're at a place in your career, Ryan, where even my mom on the phone today says, oh, what's he doing next? I'm talking to my mother, right? So if my mom's asking that question, you know that other people are asking that question as well now. How are you deciding what to do next? Because you're at a really interesting spot in your life.
Oh yeah, I'm really just working on things that are really important to me. Like the same way that I worked on Fruitvale. It's different now because I'm in a very fortunate position where people are somewhat interested in what I like to do.
It's got to be completely different as you fight so hard to get your first movie made.
It is.
And now people are fighting so hard to have you make their movie.
Well, people are interested, you know, which is different. People who didn't know who I was, you know, a few months back are interested in what I'm doing next, which is an interesting feeling to have. I try to tune it out a little bit and try to stay true to what feels right on the inside.
There was big news in Hollywood when it was announced, maybe prematurely, that you and Mike were going to be working again together on this boxing movie, and somebody asked you about it the other night, and you just laughed. And you were like, no, that's not yet. We'll see. What's the deal with the Rocky spin-off where Mike's playing Apollo's grandkid or whatever?
I mean, nothing's been secure with that. You know what I mean? It's still very, very early. It started as something very personal to me, you know what I mean, before any studio involvement or anything like that. And it was actually something that was really close to my heart, a really personal, small thing, you know. And as far as where it stands now, it's a lot of things up in the air, you know, but nothing's been confirmed anyway.
Drake has a famous line, "No new friends." I would imagine you've made a lot of new friends since Sundance.
Right.
How do you handle that? Because everyone's coming up to you saying, "We loved your movie. We want to be a part of the next movie," and and how do you kind of keep your circle small but yet go out there and make new relationships?
Oh yeah. You just judge it. You play it how it goes. You know. I think you just keep it in perspective. I think people.
You got to meet some cool people.
People throw that word "friend" around. You know, in many different ways. I'm always open to meeting new people, and I realize that as an adult, as I get older, and I realize what I want to do with my life, it's easier to find people that you have common interests with. You know. So often when you're a kid, you know, a lot of your friends you've had for a long time, but you guys are figuring out your lives at that point. So I made a lot of strong relationships, you know, in the last few years of my life, you know. But obviously, I'm fortunate enough to have a huge family, you know what I mean. So my you know, I got my little brothers, I got my mom, I got my dad, I got a tight circle of people that.
How are they handling all this?
They give me a lot of crap all the time.
Of course, well they should. Yeah, when you're like, oh, I can't come to the football game this weekend, I'm going to be in Zurich.
Yeah, they give me crap. They give me crap for stuff like that, and they try to come with me as much as they can. You know, and I still live at home in the Bay Area. You know, and that's where I live and work and stuff.
For our audience here in Switzerland and maybe watching this around the world, describe the Bay Area for people who aren't familiar.
Oh, I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's the best place. It's the best place I've ever been. You know, and it's really, really dynamic because of our physical location. You know, it's got a really interesting climate. You know, it's a Mediterranean climate, so it's never too hot, never too cold. You know, it's kind of one season the whole year round. We're right next to the ocean. A lot of political history there. We kind of the birthplace of the Silicon Valley. You know what I mean? A lot of digital movement comes out of there. You know, Google's there, Apple's there. You know, all these really cool things happen. A lot of great energy, but it's also a lot of issues there as well. You know, it can be where I'm from. Could be a very violent place. A lot of poverty exists there, you know, where I'm from as well, you know, which is all relative, you know.
But you're able to take your life experience, bring it to your work, and then you come to a place like Zurich, and you're part of the directors' roundtable, and you're meeting other filmmakers at different stages in their lives. Right. I would imagine you take a lot of pride being from where you're from, being from the Bay, and then meeting other filmmakers. What was that roundtable like for you?
Oh, I didn't think about it that much. I mean, the Bay Area is something I always kind of take with me, man. It's like my skin. You know, I'm not thinking about being from there. It's just something that's just a part of me. And the other filmmakers were from all kinds of different places. Like, you know, Adam was from, you know, he's from Canada, and other filmmakers from Germany, and James Gray's from New York. You know, other filmmakers from Sydney. You know, and I think that when you talk to all those people, you know, you hear it in how we talk. You know, it's in our perspective. You know what I mean? Where you from is kind of a part of you. Yeah. You know, and I was fortunate enough to be from a place where it's so diverse, you know what I mean? I grew up with people from different parts of Asia, from different parts of Africa, from different parts of Europe, you know what I mean? I had all these people there, and I would travel through, you know, meeting their parents and talking to them about their history. So that was the best part about the Bay. And when it comes to meeting like other filmmakers, man, I'm always kind kind of honored, man. I feel like I shouldn't be in a room with those guys.
Please, you've earned your seat at the table. And lastly, I'm just going to ask you one question that's going to make you so uncomfortable, and you probably get so mad at me.
Something right quick.
What's the Oscar nomination going to mean to you?
Man,
Sorry.
Yeah, I can't think about that kind of stuff, man. I can't think about it like that. For me, the biggest award for us was just the film is being seen and being played in different places. You know, I'm from Oakland and Richmond, man. Like if you were to tell me that I'd make something that'll play in Zurich, Switzerland, or that I would be involved in a project that would be distributed nationwide, I would have told you were crazy. You know, so that's the biggest award. And the fact that Oscar's story, you know, is being shared with these people and is touching people. Is you know, there's no award that I could receive bigger than that. So I tend to not think about the other stuff.
Well, let us think about that, and we're looking forward to see what you do next, man. And I feel like you'll love this next piece, because not only are big movies premiering out here at the film festival, but a group of composers, over 100 of them, competed to have their score judged against some of the other great composers around the world. And it's an interesting story about a music competition right here at the Zurich Film Festival.
For the second time, the film music competition is part of the Zurich Film Festival. Last Friday evening, 5 finalists competed against each other, and a jury decided which score fit the film best.
I had tailed this particular ride all the way back to the alley.
Hi, I'm Kristen Vermilia with ZFF Daily. Right here with me now is Pepe Leonhardt, who is on the jury for the film music competition. And thank you for being here. Why is film music so important?
Well, it can build bridges if there's no speech. It can make the atmosphere more tense. It can make you feel romantic. Music has many, many possibilities, and it's definitely used a lot in films.
Last year, the competition took place at the Turnhalle Zurich. This year, it was held at the Arena Cinema at Seal City.
Well, they wanted to do it at the Turnhalle again, but the problem was if you go with a big band in a room which has lots of reverb, it doesn't work. So I said it's not possible to do it in this concert hall. And then we were looking for rooms, and we were looking for halls in Zurich. We had about 5 different halls, and at the end we're here.
The composers had to create an original score for the short film Reign of Death by Matthew Savage.
I just first have the sight of the movie. I see it again and again and again. And after before talking about any music, just know where the big moments are. Even if there is music or not after, it's just what are the main important thing in the film. And after I decide where I'm going to put the music, and with the director usually, but for the kind of thing it was just on our own.
The compositions were played by the Zurich Chamber Orchestra and the Zurich Jazz Orchestra, under the musical direction of André Belmont. In the end, there was a big winner.
Laurent Courbier. Unser Finalist aus Frankreich.
Laurent Courbier from Paris won the Golden Eye with his composition.
I was surprised, and I mean, I think it's gonna take a week to realize that I won.
Never more than 10 meters from a rat, Jimbo.
want to thank director Ryan Coogler for hanging out with us here in studio, and of course to Hugh Jackman for taking some time out for ZFF Daily. Tomorrow on the show, Petra Volpe, the director of Traumland, in our studio. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.